In 897 AD, a man stood trial. He sat on a throne, dressed in full papal robes, and had been dead for 9 months. This is the story of the Cadaver Synod. And yes, every single word of this is real. Quick bit of context before we dive in. The Catholic Church in the 9th century was not a peaceful house of God. It was a political war zone. Between 896 and 904, that's 8 years, there was a new pope almost every single year. Murder, exile, backstabbing, just, church stuff. And in the middle of all this chaos lived a man named Formosus. Formosus had a career that looked like a heart monitor. Celebrated, exiled, rehabilitated, pope. By 891, he'd made it to the top job and immediately inherited a nightmare. Italy was being torn apart by two rival factions. On one side, Lambert of Spoleto, who very much believed he should be Holy Roman Emperor. On the other, Arnulf of Carinthia, king of the Franks. Formosus hated the Spoletans, so he invited Arnulf to just march into Italy. Arnulf showed up, won, and Formosus crowned him the next emperor. Lambert was out. Formosus was thrilled. Then Arnulf had a stroke, had to leave, and Formosus died shortly after, on April 4th, 896. Timing catastrophic. His successor, Boniface VI, lasted 15 days before he was also dead, probably gout. Now Stephen VI walks in. Stephen had been bishop of Anagni, a position that, awkwardly enough, Formosus himself had given him, and that was kind of a problem. See, canon law said a bishop couldn't just transfer to a different diocese. Stephen was a bishop, now he was pope, aka Bishop of Rome. Technically illegal. But Stephen had powerful friends, the Spoletans. Lambert put him in power, and Lambert wanted one thing: revenge. So Stephen and Lambert cooked up a plan. A creative plan. If they could retroactively declare Formosus' entire papacy illegal, then everything he ever did would be void. Arnulf's coronation as emperor, invalid. Lambert's removal from power, undone. And as a neat little bonus, Stephen's own appointment as bishop by Formosus, also void. No bishop, no problem. Stephen could stay pope, clean hands. There was just one obstacle. Formosus had been dead for 9 months. Stephen's response to that? So, January 897. The Basilica of St. John Lateran, Rome. Cardinals, bishops, clergy, all gathered in their finest robes. In the center of the room, a throne. On the throne, the exhumed corpse of Formosus, dug up, dressed in papal vestments, and propped upright. Standing next to the body, a young, visibly terrified deacon. His job was to speak on behalf of the deceased, to act as a defense counsel for a rotting corpse. Stephen read out the charges, and then he completely lost it. He screamed at the body, hurled insults at it, demanded answers from a dead man. The deacon responded, quietly, trembling. The cardinals sat in silence, presumably thinking, what the actual? The verdict, guilty. Formosus' papacy, annulled. Every decision he ever made, invalid. Then came the sentencing, for the corpse. The papal vestments were torn off the body. The 3 fingers on the right hand, the ones Formosus had used for ordinations, were cut off. The corpse was dragged through the basilica and thrown into a common grave, like a nobody. But Stephen wasn't done. Shortly after, he had the body dug up again, weighed down, and thrown into the Tiber River. Stephen VI called this justice. Rome was, of course, horrified. The people rioted. Stephen was removed from power, thrown in prison, and later found strangled in his cell. Pope Theodore II, his successor, had Formosus' body pulled out of the Tiber River and given a proper burial at St. Peter's Basilica. Pope John IX declared the entire Cadaver Synod null and void. And then he did something nobody had ever thought to do. He passed a law. A law stating that dead people could never be put on trial again. Nobody had thought to ban that before, but now they did. Formosus was rehabilitated. Stephen ended up strangled in a prison cell, and Lambert, the man who'd set all of this in motion, died that same year after falling off his horse. Oh, and there's one more thing. To this day, not a single pope has ever taken the name Formosus again. Some names you just, leave alone.